Weigel, you going to do it from that corner? Welcome to beautiful downtown Grand Forks. It's Monday, May 13th at 5:30 p.m. This is the time and place for the Grand Forks Committee of the Whole. Move on to item number 1.1, welcome and roll call.
All right, Weigel.
Here.
Osowski. Here. Weber.
Here.
Lunsky. Here. Kafami.
Here.
Sandy. And Veen. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2.1 is Blue Zones update.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you guys. My name is Nicole Benson. I am the community manager or director and policy lead for Blue Zones Project Grand Forks. And I'm going to take less than 10 minutes to quickly share some of the foundational Blue Zones Project built environment information, and then spend the rest of my time talking about the exciting week that we have planned. All right, so Blue Zones Project, we look at policy areas in three different areas. So built environment, food policy, and tobacco policy. So up on the screen, we have the overall goal of the built environment work. It's really to enhance the built environment, to promote natural movement, social connectedness, and overall well-being through transportation and land use policies. And then on here, I have some of our year one accomplishments and then our year two priorities. What I want to really give a shout out to is, Blue Zones Project truly is community led. And when you look at our year one accomplishments, those would not be possible without the leaders that are part of our Built Environment Committee, and then our committee chairs. So Jill, Stephanie, and Dave really play a vital role in helping us to set those priorities and really knock out those accomplishments. So our success would not be possible really without our co-chairs and our community leaders. All right, we have two guests with us, and I did give you guys packets, so their bios are part of those packets. But we have Chris and Don here. They are part of the Blue Zones LLC team. They are built environment policy experts. Chris has actually been on site, and he did some of the initial site assessments and then took part in the discovery in our built environment area. So they're flying in from Idaho tonight. And we'll just take a look at the busy schedule I have planned for them. So tomorrow morning, bright and early, we are going to head over to Wilder Elementary School, and they are going to take part in really observing the drop-off at that school, and then do some walking audit, and really focus on the 3rd and 4th Street one-ways. In the afternoon, they're going to meet with the city planners, and then with DDA and the UDD. So again, really focusing on the Wilder Safe Routes to School and that 3rd and 4th Street one-way. Wednesday, we're focusing on Central and Downtown. So again, right away in the morning, they're going to be observing the drop-off and kind of the parking and just that travel environment around Central. And then we have a stakeholder meeting in the morning with some staff, students, and then some engineers and city planners. And then they will do a walking audit throughout downtown, and then also observe lunch, especially around the Central area. The exciting thing we have planned is that our policy experts are going to be leading a walkability summit on Thursday at Freedom Church. In your packet, I do have the formal invite, and that is from 8 to noon. So I just encourage all of you, if you're able to join us. It's going to cover some great content, really looking at ways that we can make Grand Forks walkable. They're going to give attendees a chance to experience walking through their senses, learn how to be better advocates for changes in community design, and walk away with a better understanding of how planning and design policies can impact not only the health, but also the economics of the community. And then Thursday evening, we have partnered with AARP of North Dakota and DDA to hold a community event. And really that's focused on having local community members, leaders, and candidates participate in an informational session and then discuss areas in Grand Forks that potentially could use improvement and how we can make streets safer for everyone. So really encouraging you guys, if you're able, to be at that community event on Thursday, May 16th. And we'll be wrapping up our week on Friday. So conducting a walking audit starting at Gateway Drive and moving to the downtown area. Again, we have stakeholders from several different groups that are going to be participating in that. And in the evening, we will break down with our built environment chairs to really look at some opportunities that were identified over the week, set some priorities for moving forward, talk about some action items and next steps. And that's a wrap. So you do have some handouts with some additional information. And if you're able, we would love to see you guys, especially on Thursday. Any
you.
questions?
Any questions from the committee?
Thank you for keeping it short.
Yep.
Mr. Weber?
I have a quick comment. Yes, Ms. Benson, thanks for all of your work on behalf of our community, the health of our community, for people of all ages, for helping to attract workforce, for helping keep down medical costs and prolonging the length and quality of life in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Mr. Bean?
Yeah, Nicole, great job. I appreciate all the work that's going on. Right now, the focus, though, is still on the north
Correct.
part of the city, north of what?
Yep, so it's
Demers or-
north of Demers, Gateway, interstate to the river.
Okay.
So-
And so what does it take to expand it?
Additional sponsorship dollars. So we're continuing to work on, what that expansion can look like. We're working with Altru and also, the state Department of Health and Human Services help to fund the smaller section of the project. So
Well, I appreciate that we're doing something rather than nothing, don't get me wrong, but eventually it'd be nice to see the whole community involved.
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Further comments? Seeing none, thank you for being here and thank you for the update.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
Move on to item number 2.2, National Police Week resolution. Mayor Buczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Weigel. We had 5 proclamations last week, and this one coming the following week. And of its importance, I thought it was great to have it separately, so I appreciate you allowing me to read this proclamation in. Proclamation, National Police Week, May 12th to the 18th, 2024, and Police Officers Memorial Day, May 15th, 2024. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls is National Police Week, and whereas the members of the Grand Forks Police Department and area law enforcement play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of our community, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the Grand Forks Police Department unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Brandon Buczynski, Mayor of Grand Forks, North Dakota, call upon the citizens of Grand Forks and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 12th to the 18th as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers past and present who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities and in doing so have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of Grand Forks to observe May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in the service to their community, and have become disabled in the performance of their duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes.
Thank you, Mayor. Also remind people that Thursday of this week, on the 16th at 2 p.m., there is a law enforcement memorial service, and that's at Optimus Park at 4601 Cherry Street at about 2 p.m. So if you have an opportunity to swing out there, it's a really, really nice service to be a part of. We'll move on to item number 3, discussion items. 3.1 is application for a Class 3 on and off sale beer and wine alcoholic beverage license from Inthinen LLC, doing business as Little Bangkok.
All right, thank you, Councilman Weigel, members of the committee. As stated, we have received a Class 3 application, finances in receipt of the fees related to application from Inthinen LLC. They do business as Little Bangkok. They will be located at 4088 South Washington Street, Suite 201. New issuances of license fees do require the approval of City Council. That's why we bring it forward to you. This, of course, is also in contingent with payment of all fees and approval of various departments. But with that, we would recommend to move this forward for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Dorstad. We have a motion for approval by Osowski, second by Lunsky. Further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.2 is an application for a Class 4 alcoholic beverage license from Coco LLC, doing business as Coco Asian Fusion and Bar. Ms. Dorstad.
Yes, thank you. Class 4, this is the food beverage alcohol beverage license. Finances in receipt of an application for this type of license for Coco LLC. They do business as Coco Asian Fusion and Bar. This is to be located at 414 Demers Avenue. We bring this forward for your approval to move this forward. Also, as with the last one, subject to approval of various departments and payment of associated fees. We would recommend approval.
We have a motion by Osowski, second by Lunsky. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Move on to item 3.3, request for approval of ownership change for Class 3 alcoholic beverage license, Downtown Axe LLC, doing business as Downtown Axe. Ms.
All right.
Dorstad.
Thank you. This one is, as stated, just a change in ownership for Downtown Axe. It's currently a 50-50 ownership between Carrie Zavarol and Jacob Peterson. The change would be for 100% ownership of shareholder Zavarol. No fees are associated with this as it is just a current shareholder taking the entire share, but it does require City Council approval for any change in ownership. We would recommend approval on this as well.
Thank you, Ms. Dorstad. Motion by Osowski to approve, second by Lunsky. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.4 is committee appointment and reappointment to the Downtown Design Review Board. Anybody have an issue with Mr. Trozen and
No, but I have
Sadie?
a question.
Ms. Osowski?
So I noticed that, I guess I'm just kind of trying to wonder what this process is. Are these open committee positions posted anywhere on our website? Also, I noticed that Sadie has not done a resume in years, and she missed the application window. And so I'm wondering why, I mean, is this acceptable?
Todd, I can answer briefly. Nobody else wanted to do it, so that's part of it, but you can talk about the process, Mr. Phelan.
Generally, we do advertise on the city's web site and other places, city-related. They're generally open until filled. And I think, as the mayor talked about, it's hard to get applicants at this point, even for, I would say, more prime commission seats like the Alaris Center Commission or the Event Center Commission. So we are struggling. So they are open until filled at this point.
And citizens can find all open committee spots on our website. Did anybody else apply for this, or was it just those two? Okay, I move approval.
We have a motion by Osowski to approve the appointments, second by Lunsky. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.5, Public Works bid and Sourcewell purchase authorizations, and we have 3.5A, B, C, D, E, and F, if you're okay with that, or do you want me to read them all? Perfect. Ms. Lipsch?
Good evening, Council Member Weigel and committee members. The first request before you is for a 3/4 ton pickup with snowplow package in the amount of $51,670 from Chevrolet of Mandan, and to approve the surplus of unit number 6091, which is a 2006 Chevrolet 2500 4x4 pickup with snowplow. The only bid received was from Chevrolet of Mandan. And so with that, we request the ability to purchase this vehicle.
Sounds good. We have a motion by Osowski, second by Veen. Ms. Lipsch, do we want to go through all of them? And then one motion could cover everything unless other people have issues with something? Sounds
All
good.
right. Yeah,
Go ahead.
sounds good. The next request is for a Sourcewell bid for a 3-wheel front dump street sweeper from Sanitation Products of Fargo in the amount of $275,248.20 to be funded from Stormwater Collection System, and approve the surplus of unit number 6163, which is a 2014 Elgin Pelican 3-wheel front sweeper.
Perfect.
So this unit is used to clean all the streets within the city.
Comments, concerns? Okay. Move on
The
to
next
C.
item is also a Sourcewell bid for a 2024 AGCO Alice model MF8S tractor from Butler Cat of Grand Forks in the amount of $243,000 to be funded from Sanitation Landfill Division with a transfer in from the Wastewater Fund 5200. The tractor will be used for landfill maintenance activities like composting and soil treatment in the summer months, and in the winter months will be used for snowblowing purposes at the wastewater treatment plant and pump stations around the city, and could also be used on bike paths and various other areas as needed.
Perfect.
We did reach out to other Sourcewell bidders, and Butler Cat was the lowest.
All right. Item D.
The next item is also a Sourcewell bid for a Schulte RDX 117 snowblower from Butler Machinery of Grand Forks in the amount of $27,408 to be funded from Sanitation Landfill Division with transfer in from Wastewater Fund 5400. It will also be used at the wastewater treatment plant and pump stations around the city. It will also be used to clear the walking paths and bike paths as necessary.
Item E.
The next item is award the bid for a Sourcewell bid for the purchase of 2 complete front-load collection trucks from Northland Truck Sales of West Fargo in the amount of $339,324 each, and to approve the surplus of 5351 and 5323, which are a 2011 Peterbilt and a 2020 Peterbilt. Just a side note that 5323 is being evaluated right now. It was involved in a accident, and so we're waiting to see what insurance says about that. If they choose to fix it, we would still like to continue on with the surplus of that. Will be funded from sanitation collections.
Perfect. Item F.
This is also a Sourcewell bid for the purchase of a complete dual-arm collection truck from Sanitation Products of Fargo in the amount of $471,809, and the surplus of unit number 5280, which is a 2015 Peterbilt side-load refuse truck. This is an item that is going to be budgeted in 2025, but due to the time it takes to get these vehicles in, we would like to place that order now, with the hopes that then we could possibly get it in 2025.
Perfect. Ms. Lunsky, question?
So I know you guys have to put stuff out for bid, but if we're doing like a 3/4 truck and we're only getting one bid back, do we still do any other looking?
This is the only vehicle that I was able to find in the state, a 3/4 ton regular cab pickup.
Okay.
And I begged them to hold it for me and put in a bid for it, because this isn't something they normally would do.
Sure. Okay, that was my only question.
Thank you, Ms. Lunsky. I think we had a motion before, but if we could withdraw that motion and make a new motion to encompass the 3.5 A through F.
Motion approval, A through F.
We have a motion for A through F. Is there a second by Mr. Veen? Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.6 is bid award for project number 8793, district number 783, reconstruct Knight Drive, South Columbia Road to 400 feet east. Mr. Lieberman.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Weigel and members. This project met the City Council back on April 15th, and engineering was directed to advertise for bids. It is currently out for bids. We expect those Thursday of this week, so we are requesting to bring the low bidder and recommendation to award directly to City Council next week, Monday.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Veen to approve that item, second by Osowski. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.7 is bid award and task order amendments for project number 8485.2, district number 601, project number 8729, district 600, stormwater pond outfall and storm sewer for Highway 81, 7 associated areas. Mr. Danielson.
Thank you, Councilman Weigel, members of the committee. So these two projects here, they've been two separate projects that you've seen come before you a couple different times, but because of their proximity geographically and then the similarity in work, they were bid together as one project. So this is the outfall for the pond up on the Highway 81 area, and then the trunk storm sewer that collects the water and brings it into the pond. These two projects were both bid on May 2nd, and we received one bid for the project as a whole. That was submitted by United Crane Excavation in the amount of $3.276 million. Collectively, this is about 2% underneath the engineer's estimate. Individually, there was some plus minus. We were a little higher on the pond and a little, actually quite a bit lower on the trunk sewer. So individually, they were varying, but together they are 2% under. We are going to recommend approval of the bids to United Crane Excavation, that $3.276 million, but at the same time tonight, we'd also like to get approval for some amendments to the task orders that we have currently for these projects. AE2S is currently doing the design for the projects, or they've completed the design for the projects, and we'd like to amend their task orders for each of these individual projects to do the construction inspection for both these projects. Those two task order amendments together come to $214,000, and then individually it's about $130,000 for the pond inspection, and then the remaining $80,000 for the trunk storm sewer. So we'd also like to get approval for those two things. And then back when these projects were budgeted last year, the numbers were just a little bit low. We're real close to those budgeted numbers from last year, but we are going to request some budget amendments for these projects as well at this time, because those bids came back just a little bit off of what we had budgeted last year. So 3 things on the staff report: approval of the bids to United Crane, approval of 2 task order amendments that total $214,000, and then approval of any necessary budget amendments.
Thank you. Ms. Osowski?
So this isn't the actual pond, correct? We already built the pond.
Correct. The pond is already
Right.
built. The one project in this bundle is the pond outfall, which drains the pond out to the English coulee.
Okay. I move approval.
We have a motion by Osowski to approve, second by Lunsky. Is there any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.8, CPMA for project number 8557 Columbia Road overpass repairs. Mr. Danielson.
Thank you, Councilman Weigel, members of the committee. So this project is the Columbia Road overpass rehab. This is going to include several different rehabilitation techniques on the Columbia Road overpass, including sandblasting and painting the girders, retexturing and sealing the deck, replacing some of the pot bearings, replacing the finger joints, and then some other miscellaneous structural work on the Columbia Road overpass. This project is currently out for bid right now through the North Dakota Department of Transportation. We're expecting bids will be opened on the 14th, but prior to opening bids, we have to go through one of our standard NDDOT agreements, which is the cost participation maintenance agreement. It pretty much just lays out who's paying for what and who's required for maintenance once the project's constructed. And it's a standard agreement that we go through on all of our DOT projects.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Veen, second by Ms. Osowski.
Second.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.9, NDDOT Preliminary Engineering Reimbursement Agreement for project number 8823, reconstruction of Demers Avenue and 42nd Street. Mr. Kranko.
Good evening, Chairman Weigel and members of the committee. Project before you, you probably have heard it before as the 42nd Street Underpass project. This is the project that we were awarded $30 million from the Federal Railroad Administration to move this forward. Overall total cost of construction and engineering right-of-way acquisition is anticipated to be about $60 million. City share on all of that is anticipated to be about $16.8 million, but that's a real brief overview for you on that project. What I have before you tonight is simply the preliminary engineering reimbursement agreement. This is the standard agreement that we have with the North Dakota Department of Transportation, where the DOT ends up agreeing that they are going to move forward with the preliminary engineering as well as construction of the project, and the city ends up agreeing that if we materially reduce the project or terminate the project, that then we would be on the hook for the preliminary engineering costs. The DOT has advertised for proposals. They received 2 proposals for the project. The most qualified proposal was with Bolton and Mink, and they are currently working on getting an agreement put together with them. Right now, it's estimated that those engineering costs are going to be about $5.8 million. And with that, staff is recommending approving the preliminary engineering reimbursement agreement at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Kranko. Ms. Lunsky.
Can you back up for a second? So right now, you're asking for $5.8 million to pay back the DOT?
No, tonight it is simply the preliminary reimbursement agreement or preliminary engineering reimbursement agreement. That's a standard agreement that we have with the DOT, and that is simply that the DOT is going to agree to move forward with the preliminary engineering as well as construction of the project. And then if the city ends up wanting to back out and we want to terminate the project, that the city would then reimburse the DOT for the preliminary engineering costs.
Okay. Did I make up $5.8 million, or did you
Nope,
say?
I brought that in earlier as that's additional information.
Okay.
So I apologize for that bringing up that confusion.
Okay,
So that's
thank you.
working on an agreement with Bolton and Mink for the engineering.
Mr. Veen.
Yeah, it's 5.8 of the 60. So that's not our city share for the preliminary engineering.
Will the preliminary engineering get into the design layout?
Yes.
For this here? I know we had some earlier discussion on that, and this then will finalize what that layout will be.
That is correct.
Mr. Weber, did you have something?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any further? Move approval by Veen. Second by Osowski. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kranko. 3.10, plans and specs for project number 8265, pump station 186, and force main and upgrade pump stations 182 and 188. Sorry. Ms. Severson.
Good evening, thank you. So this is the next steps in the Vale Circle project, is to get the plans and specs approval. Right now, we have the bid date is scheduled for June 19th. We kind of left a bigger window since it's a bigger project and a little later in the season. The plan right now is to start both the force main and the pump station this year, and then they'll both finish next summer as well. Tonight, we're also looking for approval of the purchase of some equipment because they're long lead time parts. Right now, they're estimated at 20 to 26 weeks, so want to get those ordered so we can install them this winter. I also have Ben Williams here with WFW if you have any project-related questions.
Thank you, Ms. Severson. Comments or questions? Mr. Bean?
One question, because I did have a constituent discuss with me the special assessments, and I'm assuming they have not changed any with the amount that is?
No,
being-
the estimate is still the same, that 9.2 million.
And what was the total cost and how much was special assessed? Do you
It's like
remember?
roughly like 2.2 million, because we had that 7 point something million dollars federal share and then right around 280,000 state. So roughly 2.2 million, that's going to be special assessed.
And the spreading of the assessments was according to normal city policy, I would assume?
Correct.
Because there were different areas that received different levels of benefit, is that
Yep,
right?
yep. West of 20th got the 1.0 and then east of 20th got that 0.25 based on their drainage area with the upgrade to those two stations that are over there.
Mr. Bean, thank you. Further comments, questions, motions? Motion to approve by Osowski. Second by Veen. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.11, request for 5-year pilot from Ideal Aerosmith. Mr. Phelan.
I'd also like to introduce Mr. Owens, who is the CEO of Ideal Aerosmith. And I'm going to go through a handful of slides and then call on Mr. Owens just to give us kind of an overview of really a great news story for a Grand Forks grown business. And it's looking like the future is quite positive. So I'll just hit some of the place markers as we move forward. Again, I'll have Mr. Owens go in through more detail regarding this, but really, they do really unique things in the oil and gas industry, aerospace, and the national defense industry in kind of the testing and testing various applications. And you can see kind of the main big movement in 2009, they centralized and consolidated in Grand Forks, and that's been a big deal for Grand Forks. And here we are with another expansion in Grand Forks. Right now, this is their main facility on South Washington, and you can see it's 2.2 acres. They are also leasing space for some of their technical advice and engineers at the former WDAZ building is where they're leasing some space. Right now, they have 130 employees, average salary of $90,000, which is quite extraordinary for our community, and they look to increase that by about 70 to 200 with all the great expansion opportunities they have in the next 5 years. We talked about this, the tax incentive itself is recommended to be a 5-year 100%, and if you recall, that's been our standard policy for tax incentives for pilot exemptions, like in the downtown Renaissance area, that also goes along Gateway Drive. Your city policy projects that you should receive a 5-year 100%. Probably other than the Renaissance Zone, the closest project you approved a 5-year 100% was for the Enclave kind of manufacturing warehouse facility that's being built on I-29 South, just south of 32nd Avenue South. So this is kind of an equivalent building. So that's how we aligned on that with the 5-year 100% as part of standard city policy. The other exciting part of this is that they're looking to expand. So they have these two facilities, the lease space at WDAZ, and then they have their more permanent spot on South Washington. And they're looking to move from that smaller facility, and they're looking to purchase a 15-acre site in our business park. So right now, if you think about this is I-29, this is Pro Transport, this is the Midco Service Center, and further north, you'll get into Border States Electric, FedEx, and Acme are to that. So you can see where this is a substantial parcel. You're used to seeing maybe parcels that are more in that 5-acre range. So this is a substantial parcel that they're purchasing. And I think preliminary estimates where they're planning to build about 100,000 square foot building compared to where they are today. So it's a major investment for them. This particular purchase, the staff report, we're calling on a public hearing for the 5-year 100% for June 17th at your city council meeting. That's the motion that we have this evening. The preliminary recommendation is again for that 5-year 100%. This land purchase will be following the Growth Fund Jobs Development Authority path. So we're proposing a growth fund meeting on June 10th, and then a subsequent June 17th Jobs Development Authority, where this would be on the agenda. I would anticipate at those same two meetings on June 10th and June 17th, if we have enough information, there may be also a PACE loan application, and a PACE loan to be related to the building development itself with a private lender, and some of those various things that you see with the interest rate subsidy that we provide working through the Bank of North Dakota in our Grand Forks Growth Fund. Again, I just want to go through the 5-year 100% tax exemption. It's for the building only. So right now, this is in the public land, so the land is not taxed. So, and as you recall, with any tax incentive project, the land is not a part of the development. So the land is taxable. So if we are able to move forward with that 15-acre sale with Ideal Aerosmith, we'll put about $44,000 right on the tax rolls right away on having it in private hands. And then eventually, year one, we're estimating with about a $10 million building, with a $2 million land cost, with about $2 million of equipment that's not taxed. If you just take those estimates, we're estimating the annual tax is about $176,000. So you're deferring that for 5 years, but that will likely grow over 5 years, and then 100% that will be on the tax roll. So it's really a big deal to have a growing company adding over 70 jobs to our community over the next 5 years, high and paid jobs that are at $90,000 a year on average, and then locating in our business park and building a substantial building in our community. So it's a really big deal for us, and it just shows all the progress they've made over their history, to include their history in Grand Forks from 2009 forward. I just wanted to let you know all that, so you see the three pieces: the tax incentive, the land purchase, and then the likely PACE project bank subsidy that will come through. Those will all come through, and hopefully we'll have final approval on all three of those on June 17th at the City Council and at the Jobs Development Authority. So with that, Mr. Owens, would you mind introducing yourself and just say a few words about all the exciting things that are going on with your company?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for allowing me to speak. We've been very blessed to be in Grand Forks and to have a great response from our work staff in Grand Forks. And as a result, we've been growing in excess of 20% a year for the last several years, and we have outstripped all of our space capacity. We are at beyond maximum space right now. In addition, we had a facility in the Pittsburgh market that we closed, and we transferred that work to Grand Forks and have just completed two very large projects that have been shipped overseas. So the community's been really supportive, and we appreciate that. We're excited about the opportunity to expand in Grand Forks, and the type of work we do is very specialized and requires a highly trained and highly motivated staff, which we've been fortunate to find in Grand Forks. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Any?
Chair Weigel, if I may?
Yes, Mr. Weber.
This is an ideal business for Grand Forks, and I just wanted to thank Mr. Owens for choosing our community for this expansion.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'll move approval.
Perfect. We have a motion by Weber, second by Veen with a comment.
Yeah, Mr. Phelan, I'm sure it took kind of a number of people to get this thing all through and set with the city EDC and whatever. Can you talk about what that effort looked like?
Well, I would say, number one, it's been a real treat to work with Ideal Aerosmith. And, I think the first time we had this conversation, Senator Hoeven had Ideal Aerosmith in town, I don't know, a few months ago, and they were testifying the fact of all the great things that are coming to Ideal Aerosmith as part of, what he had been working on. And the mayor and I and Keith Lund from the EDC had been able to go over to Ideal Aerosmith I know this is even before that, several months ago, and just talk about how things were going, and things were going positive. And so we've had a few meetings with them, including the one with Senator Hoeven, and it kind of leads really to this business expansion. And as I was talking to Councilmember Osowski earlier today, this is one of these homegrown companies that is choosing to expand in Grand Forks and really to stake their claim here. And, you know, we've had some companies that, you know, were growing and expanding in Grand Forks, but then decided they had to move somewhere else. So we were really enriched that they felt like their employees wanted to stay in Grand Forks, and they were able to attract employees to Grand Forks too, to serve their technical skilled workforce that they need.
Thank you.
Ms. Lunsky?
So right now, does the city of Grand Forks own that land?
We do.
And
Yep.
so we would sell that then to Ideal?
We do. The city set that business park up, I would say, in the mid-2010s, probably 13, 14, 15. It was part of our expanding, getting land ready and available with infrastructure. In some areas of town, we just put in infrastructure adjacent to private land to get it ready for available. In this case, we finished 48th Street, and then we also purchased some property to really help us make land availability. And you know, I was talking to Council President Sandy, we bought the parcel right here is the border. So from this border right here to 32nd is owned by Johnson Farms. So this is the parcel we purchased. We put the infrastructure, and so the value that we're putting on the 325 is for the land and also for the infrastructure, the special assessments that we put on it. After this purchase of 15 acres, we'll likely have, I was asking Mr. Brooks from planning, we'll likely have 30 acres or less, based upon all we've done over the last 10 years, or about 10 years. We do not intend to go out and do this again. This was really intended to kind of ignite the kind of commercial industrial area to get this moving. We would anticipate moving forward with all the investments that we've made in this park and also in those other private areas, that the private sector should be able to continue to grow and expand in the commercial and industrial. So we're down to like 30 acres or less, and so I would assume in the next few years we'll be probably out of property, and you'll be dealing with more private property owners wanting to put infrastructure in and partner with the city of Grand Forks.
And then they will vacate their two existing buildings, the old DAZ and the one on 32nd, Washington?
Mr. Owens, did you hear that question?
I did. I would say that is our intent right now, but based on what we're seeing in the marketplace and the potential expansion, we could end up retaining our building 3001 South Washington, just depending upon how the workflow comes and how the projects line up. Our project size and magnitude has grown exponentially in the last 3 years. And so, you know, a year ago, I would have said absolutely we would sell and abandon those locations. But right now, I'm not totally willing to commit to that.
And the last thing, I just wanted to say thank you. I do see your logo on a lot of local sponsorship opportunities, so I just want to say thank you for supporting our community.
Well, thank you for noticing. It's important that our employees have a thriving community to live in, and so we are very supportive of that.
Thank you. Further comments, questions?
Just one last comment. I think, like you said, it's a pretty exciting project. It's been a great success story for the business, and I think for the community of Grand Forks as we looked at these strategic growth areas, and we're able to, I guess, expand and grow in these areas as long as we led with getting infrastructure and looking at where those places were going to go. So I think it really is a result of all of that coming together.
Yep. And I should say kudos to Ken Vien. That was one of his first initiatives as a council member. That had to be circa 2014 where we started work on these growth areas. So here we are 10 years later.
Perfect. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. We will move on to item number 3.12, Children's Museum Update and Agreement.
Sure.
Mr. Fields.
Councilmember Weigel, I'm honored tonight to have Sally Miscavige on behalf of the Children's Museum to provide you an update. And what we talked about in the 2024 budget process that you've approved, that we would come back with I'll call it a development agreement on the $10 million that we're going to move forward with. And so that's in front of you this evening, but I'm going to have Ms. Miscavige, and it looks like Mr. Groff is by her side. They're going to give you an update on the Children's Museum, and then I'm going to get up and talk about the agreement itself and kind of what it entails. And I see Mr. Gosta was able to join us from his location too, but I'll start on the agreement, then defer to Dan, and then we'll be opened up to some questions.
Thank you.
I was asked.
I'll have you, Sally. I'll have you present from here.
Oh,
Then you can hit the buttons.
Thank you. Well, we're excited to present here today, so thank you for having us. And we're still working on our campaign to bring a children's museum to Grand Forks, and our campaign slogan is Building a Brighter Future. How do you, there you go. We have just finished schematic design, and so we're planning a 30,000 square foot building with 2 stories of exploration, land and sky. And then we want to really celebrate our regional strengths and what we have going in the community. And so we have concepts of farm to table. Could we be growing crops outside? What does the inside look like, and how can we tie that into our community? And it's a play-based facility, and the main ages are that 3 to 12 elementary age, and then we're hoping to hit all ages from 0 to 99 with our programming space. And our mission is to engage minds through play, and vision is to provide a creative space that enriches lives through exploration. Here are just some conceptuals of as you enter the building and what that may look like. Some of the other concepts that we have are, in the front, could you have spaces that you could gather people, say a pavilion space where you bring vendors and food trucks together, where you share different community cultures that may develop. And then outdoor space is this idea of 4 seasons outdoor play. So I loved seeing us open up with Blue Zones. That's a partner that we've been talking to. And how do you get children and families outside living healthily so that we can maintain the quality of life in Grand Forks, so that we can retain citizens and have them here in our community. Here's another concept of just an outdoor space, how that may look with this farm to table. Could you have crops where they're growing and you do some type of programming that with those crops where you can have them come inside and learn about that? We've had discussions with UND and some of their different various departments, and there's master gardeners all across the community looking to engage in this facility. And I'll just kind of zoom through, and then you guys can ask questions because I don't want to keep you here all day. So here are some of the conceptuals on the main floor. So the land exhibit, it's 13,000 square feet of exhibit space, and then the rest is programmatic. So event space for programming, would you have like a robotics team come, and all of this is being filtered out. We have about, I would estimate, 100 people around the community that are on various committees and dedicating volunteer time to help plan and give feedback, and then with surveys that we've had. So we have this front space is 2 multi-purpose rooms that could be 1 room or 2 rooms, and then a back multi-purpose space where you could have events and programming. And this is, again, just schematic conceptual designs here of the land and sky space and what that may look like. And these are I like to call them a mood board. So what could be going on in there? We are planning for like a water table, building little toddler area where you can have kids safe from the older kids, and then building hands-on learning. And one thing that was really interesting for me getting involved in this, I don't have a education background at all, but just learning from the people that are on our committees that are in education, just how important play-based education they're actually learning, and that's a fundamental part to childhood development. And so when we look at the Career Impact Academy and how that goes into STEM education, just how does this play into STEM education? And then if you're starting it on that preschool age, it's just a great time to spark interest in learning in STEM education. Here's conceptuals of the landscape tot spot. And so it would look as if you're flying over Grand Forks in a space, safe space to be playing, and perhaps you could have some crops growing through there. Here's some conceptuals of the sky space. So what is that experience like, and what types of things are they learning about in there? Another conceptual drawing of the sky space. So could they learn about the clouds, the rain, the planets, snow, or wind, and defining volumes? This is a view from the outside of the building showing the multi-level climber, and that signifies growth. And it's a, let's see, I think it's on this next, a 2-story climber that's sort of like little petals as you go up, and it could be sunflowers, it could be the sun, and it just connects the main floor to the second floor. We're working with the Park District on a destination playground, and this is something that would be owned by the Park District, but we are partnering with them on the fundraising efforts for that. And so this is a part of our 4 seasons outdoor play plan. And so these are just some concepts on what it may look like. This is the location of the Children's Museum in its current location, and if you see that 8 acres on the front parcel and then the back parcel for the destination playground adjacent to Choice Health Fitness. And Altru has generously donated that land. Some other milestones that we've had is we had the North Dakota State gave us a $5 million grant, part of K-12 education budget. And then, of course, what we're talking about is this $10 million that we're finalizing the details on. And then we've been involved in the community. Our largest event is Full Steam Ahead. We've had it 2 years in a row with 8,000 participants estimated, and we had school groups from as far as Cavalier coming for the day at kindergarten class, drove up on the bus, and I think it was like 70 classes that went through there, and then after hours, it was open to the public for approximately 10 days. Then we've been out in the community at many various events throughout the time. And we're in schematic design, have lots of fundraising events planned. In our capital campaign, we've raised, we're at about 27 million, and continuing to secure donors. We finally have gotten to the place where we're looking for naming sponsors for the museum, so we feel like we're ready with our campaign and all of our materials, and have brought on an executive director, Katie Mayer, to be our executive director. She starts full-time as soon as her contract ends as a principal at Holy Family St. Mary's. And then this is just our goals to secure an additional, I guess it's around about 19 million now, and then continue our fundraising, finalizing design, and continuing our community engagement, trying to get everybody involved. And so we really appreciate the support from the city of Grand Forks, and this is a community project with lots of volunteers, and I'm just representing the Children's Museum, but there is many of us.
Thank you. Comments, Mr. Phelan?
Maybe I'll just go over the dollars and cents with Dan and Maureen, and then maybe we'll just take questions as a whole. So just to remind you, the city was going to fund this $10 million investment through your Economic Development Fund 2163, and that's intended for quality of life, economic development, and other ventures that we do. And so this is the same fund when we talk about arts, events, those sorts of things, funding of the EDC, those sorts of things. So that's the fund that's through the city of Grand Forks. So that was the intended fund that we're moving forward with. And, we think it meets the mark of quality of life. I would say we're so happy that Mayor Buczynski stuck his neck out on quality of life. We're doing a lot of quality of life stuff. We're probably in the field of play where we never have been before this 4 years, and I think that's all for the good. And we really do appreciate the City Council joining that strategic initiative in quality of life. I just wanted to hit some of the numbers that are in the staff report. The initial dollar amount is 6.3 million, and that's what we're calling in construction funds. And that would be in 2024, it would be 5.5 million, and then 25 and 26 would be 400,000 for each of those years. That equals 6.3. The reason why we've staggered it that way is likely construction will start in this facility next year. So, and it will likely be completed in 2027. So we're taking the initial amount that we've accumulated over time, which is the 24 amount, and then looking at 25 and 26. So that would be for the initial construction of this facility. Likely this facility is going to be done in late 26, more likely early 27. And then you can see from year 2027 to 2034, there'd be $400,000 annual amounts that would go towards the Children's Museum. And what Mr. Goss has called, those are payment of city construction finance funds. So we're still paying just for the construction of this facility, but those dollars amounts are dedicated to the construction financing of this particular facility. There is one item on there possibly in 2030. The city may have additional $500,000 that we could dedicate to this facility. So it would go from 10 million to 10.5 million in that case. So whomever's in here in 2030 can further discuss that particular issue. Also wanted to highlight, these are unreimbursable. So like the state's gift of $5 million, I think the Children's Museum just received the $5 million. Where we play a little bit harder to get, you have to expend the money, demonstrate you've done the right things with it, and then we reimburse you with that. So ours will be a reimbursement and not just a grant to the Children's Museum. The one last thing I want to touch on is it notes the South Washington location, and possibly at the Monday City Council meeting, we may have an item as an alternative site. And the alternative site would be the south of the Allaire Center, where the Ultra Indoor Sports and Aquatic Center is. That's an alternative site that we're going to ask you to consider. And so we've looked initially, and that site would fit on that site south of the Allaire Center. But there's some more work that we needed to be done on the master planning of that if we're going to integrate that. And then we're also going to ask you, if we get all the work done, to look at the traffic engineering impacts of both the Indoor Sports and Aquatic Center and also on this Children's Museum. So I just want to give you a heads up on that. More to come on Monday. Will likely be in front of you, maybe with some general schematics of what that would look like. And I think the important part is now the Children's Museum has two paths forward. At the existing site or at the Indoor Sports and Aquatic site, if you so allow that to move forward. But we'd have additional information on Monday in that regard. And then maybe with that, I'd defer to Mr. Gosted on some of the legal particulars.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan.
Thanks, Todd. Sorry, I'm away. I just had some other work out of town today. So I just wanted to highlight some of the things with respect to the distributions. Under the terms of the agreement also calls for certain parameters as far as construction is concerned. The same type of terms that you've seen in other type of development agreements. But some of the conditions with respect to the reimbursement applications, they have to go through, like Mr. Phelan mentioned, that there's a reimbursement process. With that reimbursement process, they have to provide information and evidence that all the bills and invoices that they're requesting have in fact been paid. The reimbursement request also has to provide the sum total of all costs and expenses for the services performed through the date of that reimbursement request, so that we can then follow how things are progressing. It's kind of like a construction loan with bank financing, just to make sure that the progress is proceeding as anticipated. The museum's architect will provide a good faith estimate as to where they're at, from being substantially complete with each reimbursement request. And that the costs and expenses, like I said, have been paid and discharged fully. And the other item that exists with respect to the distribution of these funds, and I'm just trying to find that is they also have some assertion or some representation that with our funds and any other funds that they've got committed, that would be sufficient to pay for the construction of the Children's Museum. That's a condition as well. That's the most significant is we want to make sure that the city's funds and what they have commitments for would be sufficient to pay for the Children's Museum. The other thing that I added was that we're going to be contributing for the construction a little over $6.3 million in a total of about $10 million. We put in a provision that if their construction if they downsize the Children's Museum to a certain point, and the number is $20 million, then the city's contribution gets reduced as well, so that, if they reduce it, then the city's percentage isn't now, instead of 23% of the total construction costs or anticipated construction costs, under those scenarios, if they reduce the size of it, then our percentage would become larger. We wanted to have some level of controlling. In speaking with the representatives from Children's Museum, they don't anticipate that to occur, but we put in that condition as well. As far as the ongoing contributions in the years 27 through 2034, it makes it very clear that there's nothing in the agreement that actually requires those type of distributions to be made. They're made on an annual basis and approved by the city council through your budgeting process and in the city's council discretion. So we're not obligating future councils to this. Also, those funds have to be used for pay down of the loan. There may be an exception if they would happen to pay down their loan in advance, then they could use it for those funds for capital improvements only. So I just wanted to point those things out with respect to the conditions that exist before the distributions are made. And there are a number of them before any funds from the city would be distributed. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that the council may have, but I thought you'd be most interested in the types of conditions that have been embedded within the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Gosted.
Maybe, Maureen, maybe a few more words on the financing part of it, too.
Thank you. I think Mr. Phelan and Dan covered everything very well. I just wanted to clarify one item with regard to the year 2030 with those additional $500,000 beautification funds. That's actually programmed in there to be part of the 10 million, but it's shown in the agreement, 400,000 a year for 10 years, with the exception of that 1 year in 2030 where you have the additional $500,000 in there for 900,000 that 1 year. But it is, just to clarify, it's part of the 10 million.
Thank you, Ms. Dorset.
Yep.
Comments from council? Ms. Lunsky?
Chairman Weigel.
Or Mr. Weber, go ahead.
First of all, Ms. Sorstad, Mr. Gosted, thanks for protecting the city's exposure on these deals and making sure that we're going about this in a fiscally responsible manner. Mr. Phelan, thanks for all of your work helping shepherd this deal forward. But Mayor Buczynski, thanks for your courage and your foresight in supporting this project. The city will now, at present, the single largest donor, but that's what's necessary to show that sort of community support to attract larger donors and to move this forward. So thanks for doing that. And then Sally, thanks for all your work on this. It seems like every time I see you, you're out there working very hard to make this dream a reality. And I look forward to the day when we have families and school children, buses of school children coming from miles and miles around to enjoy this great facility that will benefit our taxpayers, citizens, and people throughout the region. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Ms. Lunsky?
I just want to say, Sally, I've watched you throughout the years assemble this incredible team. I have no idea where you get the energy to put all this together. But you've done a great job, and it's very impressive, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lunsky. Ms. Osowski?
I do have some questions / comments. I'm not against the Children's Museum. I'm against the funding of it. I think it's a lot of taxpayer funds that we're putting in here. Now, the last time you were in front of the council, I believe there was a discussion going on about how the city should pledge this money so that it can draw in other investors. Now, I'm looking at the project and I still show that we're $49 million short. And so I'm just wondering, I guess, where that money's gonna come from. In our staff report, it says you guys have only secured $11.1 million. I mean, to me, there's still just a giant gap of unknowns on where this money is even going to come from. I don't know why. I mean, we pledged our money to you guys. Where's this other funding going to come from?
Well, so that 49 million is like the working capital of the whole project to include the land gift. From All True, we used to call it 45 million, but then we started counting the $4 million land value in the total pie bucket. And so we've raised 27 million, that is with including the city pledge towards the total goal. So like if you look at
How much
those.
did you say, Sally?
27 million.
So 27,
Roughly.
I mean, that still puts the city's contribution
Yeah, the city's
way up there.
Yep, the
you know,
city's the
like
largest donor,
percentage-wise.
yep.
And
And-
it says on the slide that you're still needed, it says on the slide, $23 million. That's what the slide says, still needed.
Right, and so we're going out and just as recent as a couple weeks ago, we finally are in the position. We've been waiting for our schematic designs and to get the executive director on board and getting our team together. We're all volunteers, almost all of us. And so we just started going out for a naming donor for the building. And so we're looking at $10 million to put a business name on the building. And we.
So that would put you at 37 million, right? Because
Correct.
you have 27, and then you'll get another 10 for the naming. So
Yep.
37. So.
And then you go out to different organizations, and we have a pipeline of like, I think it's a couple hundred now, where we've begun relationships with many of them and have been in discussions with them, and then you negotiate different naming. So we've broken out our naming. You can find it on our website. You can pull it up on there, but there's the different areas. So if like you're interested, for example, was it Ideal Aerosmith that was just on? So perhaps they may have an interest in naming the sky level, for example, and we've broken out the different exhibits. And so those concepts and conceptual designs have been just started to get developed. And it seems that almost everybody that we've went to so far has almost everybody has done something. And so they're doing what they can to support the project, and we've seen a lot of support towards it. And so and it's not always just for the naming opportunity. Sometimes it's just because someone wants to be part of something bigger and leave a legacy. You see these across the whole country, and that's a similar deal where you break them up into fundraising buckets.
How long have you been fundraising for this? For a couple years now, right?
Well, we received our, what?
For a couple years now?
Yeah, we received our first donation. I think we just was like 3 years ago was our first donation that we received. And it wasn't like a donation, it was just like a verbal, hey, we'd support this project. And then recently, I'd say fundraising more seriously for the last, I don't know, we've been doing it. This project started when the mayor first started, right about his first week. So how long have
When
you
the
been
mayor,
there?
that was 4 years ago, and you said you just got your first donation 3 years ago.
Right, it takes a long time. A lot of times, projects like this take, a lot of people told us that it would take over 10 years, and so they can't believe the speed that we're going at and the momentum. And I think the support from the state, the support from the city, and the early support that we had from some donors that were pledging legacy gifts towards the project was really great to see.
So, I like when you come up here and you give your conceptual ideas and things like that, but where's your business plan on how you or how the Children's Museum is going to be able to sustain itself after the city funds kind of stop trickling in? I mean, is there a business plan for that? Is that something that we could see?
Yeah, we
as
are
a
working
council?
on, we have a year one, year two, operating budgets, and then those are still things that we're working out. So like I said, we have, I would say 100 or so people that are involved with various financial capacities. Not all of them, obviously, some of them are educators and have
So
different.
right now, we just don't know.
No, actually,
Because
Ryan's
you're
one
still
of them,
work-
right
you're
here,
still
so he's
working on
handy.
Sorry, maybe just to clarify, the city funds are identified strictly for capital costs. So those funds aren't going to be sustaining any of the operations. But as a board member, there was a board meeting prior to council meeting today. And I'm not on the board myself. I'm there in a support fashion as a volunteer for the project. But they are working, they have detailed business plans that do go into how the facility, the museum itself will be able to sustain itself over those years and what that would look like in a variety of different scenarios. And so I think maybe just to reiterate that there's been a lot of progress, especially over the last, I think, 6 months where they have completed schematic design. And so what that means is that the firms that are helping with the design process have basically completed what the technical details of the facility itself looks like on the building itself. And that's the piece that the city will be participating in particular. So.
I mean, I guess to me, if you get funds for construction, you don't have to use funds out of the other pocket to pay for that. So right pocket, left pocket, but whatever. Who's on your board?
That's also on the website. You want me to just try to remember? off the top
I
of my
guess
head?
I'm wondering if
So
for
Dean-
the
Dean
large donation that the city is giving, I feel that is there someone from our council that is a representative on that, especially with, the amount of money that is supposedly in our future budgets? Is there anybody from the council on your committee? Or anybody even representing the city of Grand Forks?
Are you looking at me to join?
Yeah, sure. Dana Sandy was a board member for the first couple years. And then, yeah, we would love to have a representative. We have, Brandon was invited to a lot of the meetings, but we're open to that.
I think that it would be a good idea for us to have some sort of representation on there with the amount of money.
One of the committees.
So,
Sorry, just to add, I do believe that as part of the agreement that Mr. Gosted put together, there are contingencies that the Children's Museum will present an annual report to the city council prior to those funds for that year being able to be released. So,
okay.
correct me if I misremember that one, Dan.
But we're truly trying to listen to everybody. We've always tried to be a community voice. Anybody that's requested to reach out to us, somebody from one of our committee meets with them and hears their ideas and hopes for the project. And that goes for all the council members and anybody in this
I guess I
room.
would like to see that in the presentations that you have before the committee. but,
Sorry, I tried to make it short.
Yeah, I appreciate
Yeah,
that
I
part
didn't-
very
I
much,
don't know.
Sally.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
answer
you.
your questions, but yes, sorry. It's hard to predict what everyone wants to hear.
Another question I have, this is, might be for you, Sally, might be for Mr. Phelan. So why all of a sudden are we discussing a change in location? And what, did Altru donate that $4 million land plot? Was that the park part? Or is that according to this map that they have on here, they showed the Children's Museum would be kind of up front on Washington, and then the park would be back there. Did Altru just donate the park part? Is that why we're discussing the movement of the entire Children's Museum? Or who owns this land where the Children's Museum is, why are we all of a sudden discussing a land change?
Life always gets more complicated. It definitely does. So this is the Altru property where Altru intended to build a clinic there. They didn't move forward with that and said
Okay.
they bought the facility across the street. And then this is Park District land where the park is going.
Oh, so
I think that.
Altru donated the front part, right?
Yep, and I think their thought is, subject to their board approval, would it be better to locate next to the next to the Alter Indoor Sports and Aquatic in the Alara Center as part of more of our destination corridor with, we just talked about the underpass with the Career Impact Academy to the north on 42nd. Would that be a better, more location next to Interstate in that area? And if they did that, I think what Alter was contemplating, instead of an in-kind donation, maybe they would look at more of a cash donation in that. But those are things that they brought to us. I think both teams felt like it had enough merit that we should bring it to City Council for consideration so that we don't miss a really great opportunity moving forward. Does it complicate what we're trying to do? Yes. But if it's greater good, We're on the same path, you know, we want to break ground next spring with the indoor sports and aquatic facility, as you see on the timeline. They would like to break ground on their facility too, and so it'd be a way for us on the south of the Alaris site to share infrastructure, share parking, maybe share some maintenance in that area, and then also create a synergy between the two facilities and the Alaris Center.
I guess, in my personal opinion, I'd like to see you guys out by the Aquatic Center. I think I personally don't think your museum is going to bring people to town. I think it'll be something to do in between hockey games, you know, or sporting events going on at the facility that we're going to build. So I mean, I guess financially, I would like to see your museum busier, and I think that people could hop over there then while their kids are at a basketball tournament. I don't think they're going to drive across town to spend more than a couple hours at a children's museum or come to Grand Forks only to see the children's museum. Maybe some bus full of kids might from different communities, but I don't see it as a destination. I do not think that I have any other questions, so thank you.
Can I add something?
Yes, ma'am.
We do see there is over a $5 million regional demand for facilities like this, and families do travel because of them, and so we are seeing it as a destination. So even when we rented the curling club to do our event Full Steam Ahead, I went around and surveyed people where they were from, and about half of the people were from outside of the city of Grand Forks. So they came, not all of them came just for the Children's Museum, but the first guy on Saturday when I was there that walked in the door had driven up from Fargo, and he had the kids for the day, and he was a dad and brought his kids, and the reason why he came to Grand Forks was to visit the Children's Museum. So it is a thing now that families are looking into these and building them, and I think that's why you'll see them popping up in more communities across the country. I think the first one was in the 80s.
Are any of these other museums making money then? Have you looked into their finances to see, I mean,
yeah, children's
how they're
museums,
even sustained?
so that somebody visits it for a destination and that they are operationally sustainable are probably two separate questions. So typically, children's museums are 60 to 80% earned revenue, and then the rest of the funding is brought on by grants, corporate support, things like that. And so we are looking at different models on one of the most important things, and the things that we've always talked about is how can we make this operationally sustainable, and that's
I think that'd be one of the first questions.
It was the first question. Yeah, and it was, the thought, we've been in this community for a long time, and you got the constant people coming, asking for money for support, and it's we don't want to be just bleeding, we want to be thriving and have it be somewhere where people are visiting and really have it set up good. So we appreciate all the support from community members that are offering guidance, all the partnerships that are potential that we can develop that'll help sustain operations will be great.
What is your money raised goal have to be before you can actually break ground?
Ryan was gonna help us with that. He's smart.
Yeah, I think we are, I'm still in the process of putting together a construction pro forma on that, but we'll know more, I think, I believe it was mid-June is where we get an updated construction cost estimates from the schematic design that was just completed.
Is there, I mean, I guess before I would feel comfortable voting for this, I would like to see some of those numbers. I feel like every time they come, it's, oh, we're raising money, and I don't feel like we're moving as far into that positive direction as maybe they say they are, but.
Perfect. I think one important thing to remember is they're not getting paid any of that money until the project gets going. And so if we approve it tonight, they're truly not out, or the city's truly not out anything if something doesn't happen. So, Mayor, I think you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's on a reimbursement basis. I think these are all great questions. I think it's important to look back at the start of where did these funds come from for the Children's Museum. The city sold off 3 commercial buildings, 2 downtown, 1 that was west of town. We're really getting out of the commercial real estate business, which I think is good. I don't think we should have ever been in it in the first place. So I'm happy to see that. We're going to be able to use $10 million to leverage 40+ million community funds to attract families, have things for kids to do, workforce, education, just entertainment in general. So I think we're doing things the right way. The city doesn't want to have to be the crux of the whole thing. That's why we've got some really great people setting up a great plan. And again, our funds don't go out the door until they're ready to construct the thing, and they're sending us receipts for actual, construction costs. So I think it's a good way to look at it and a good contract, so I appreciate the work, Mr. Graff, Sally, as always, and Mr. Gostad of putting together a thoughtful agreement. And I think Mr. Gostad's got his hand up too. I don't know if you can see that there, but thank you, Mr. Weigel.
Mr. Gostad, further comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I know there was comments or questions raised about when payments would be made. And again, it probably wasn't clear enough, but there has to be a statement from the Children's Museum that with the funds from the city and they've got legally binding enforceable commitments, that would be sufficient to pay the costs and expenses for the design and construction of the museum. And during that interim period of time, that they would agree to use all of those unrestricted funds to construct. So I think we've embedded some conditions in there that kind of address some of the fundraising aspects of it, that there has to be some level of documentation that they've got enough funds plus the city funds to be able to design and construct the Children's Museum before any funds are paid from the city.
Thank you, Mr. Gostad. I think it's been a really good discussion. Mr. Bean, do you have something else you want to add?
Yeah. First of all, I'm really excited about the project, very supportive, especially as we look at a quality of life. Projects that we're trying to get involved in, and encouraging to hear about the great community support. And also congratulations on hiring a CEO. I think that's going to be a nice step. What are you doing about development and fundraising director? How are you addressing, I know you're done a lot with volunteers, but are you being able to put together a development plan that has a timeline, costs, projections, and those kind of things to make sure that we stay on schedule?
Yeah, we have Kim Woods, who's leading our campaign. And then as Katie comes on board, she's going to also assist with the fundraising role. And then we are looking to build out that team and waiting for Katie to be on there full time. So there's, so I think there's like 10 days of school left or something. But Kim Woods with her has a fundraising background.
You've hired your architect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who is that?
The local engineering firm is EAPC with MSR out of Minneapolis.
Who's doing your interpretive design on the inside that's looking at all the exhibits and all of that? Is that being done by a specialist?
Yeah, Toboggan Design. They're an international specialist for this type of age and this type of design. They worked with the Winnipeg Children's Museum and many children's
So they're under
museums.
contract, is what you're saying. And then you'll be looking later for your fabricator and AV integrator and all of that?
Yeah, he works with fabricators.
Yeah, because you're going to have to hire somebody specific for that.
Correct, depending on the type of exhibit.
I guess the other part that I think is always concerning with every capital cost is actually the lowest cost. The long-term operating cost is where most costs are going to be. So I'm really anxious to see what your operating costs, what you have for projections utilizing. I think it's going to be important that it be affordable and that we don't turn any kids away. Let's put it that way, and yet you've got to have a business plan to be able to do that. And there's a fine line for how you're going to make all that come together. And then looking at, again, how we would recover the cost. Because it's going to take us, have you looked at what your staffing is going to be to run this now?
Yeah, I mean, it's substantial, and so we're still developing the programming out and how many staff people you'll have, and that's why, as shocking as it was to potentially the thought of, relocating, but you always got to look at who are your partners, how are you going to make this operationally sustainable, and we're looking at different opportunities, and Kim has agreed to continue on our project to build out a $10 million endowment to help support operations in addition. And we had our,
I think
receiving gifts towards
that's really
that.
smart. If you can get an endowment that'll fund operations, because that's probably one of the best ways you can dress yourself for the long term.
Yeah, so that's the current plan, and we do have an endowment set up It's currently with the Community Foundation.
What's the project delivery method? Are you using design bid build? Are you doing a CM at risk? Or what are you looking
CMAR
at?
with PCL and Community Partnership.
Okay, so have you hired the CM?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's already hired.
yeah,
Okay.
PCL.
Sounds good. And they'll be doing your estimates on the schematic drawings, I would assume?
They just sent those out. We got ours today. They sent them out.
Yeah, and maybe to add to that, because there was a significant amount of public funding between the state and the potential for the city commitment, the Children's Museum did go through the public bidding RFP process for that.
I'm sure you're subject to all state laws once you accept those funds, whether it's open records, everything is open, right?
Yeah, we were following the Century Code prior to receiving the state funds in anticipation of potentially receiving them.
Okay. And I want to say thanks, Mayor. You got to the sources of funds to explain that so people know what's being used and that this is the priority that the city is making at this time to fund the library. Thanks.
Children's Museum, not library. Yeah. Sounds good. Is there further comment? Is there a motion? Anybody would like to make?
Move approval.
Move approval by Kavami, second by Lunsky. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1 with Osowski dissenting. Or 5-1, I'm sorry.
5-1, yeah.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 3.13, Red River Water Supply Project. Staff report, Mr. Phelan.
Councilmember Weigel and Committee of the Whole, I have a presentation here I'll try to get through quickly. Also, Sean Gaddy is here from AE2S. He's helped model some of these slides, and a lot of these slides came from Garrison Diversion, and you'll get to know them as I go through the presentation, but we adapted many of those as we move forward. So at the end, also Mr. Coors, I think, is going to be on. Yep, there's Shane Coors is on. So he's the gentleman in his firm that we're going to ask you to move forward with as a consultant on this too. So you'll get introduced to him too along the way. Quickly, we've been at this. I think this is a moment of truth for the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. We've been at this for a while, but really this is an important year as we move forward with this project, as we've worked on this several years. And again, it started out as a long-term emergency water supply, but as we've worked on this project, it's become more of an economic development initiative in partnership with emergency water supply. This is the project. It's a $1.26 billion project, and you can see the green line is the pipeline for the water supply, and there's another slide in here that I'm going to go over in more detail. And the important part of this project, especially with the state legislature, is it's serving 50% of the North Dakota's population, not only in eastern North Dakota, but also in central North Dakota. So it's a really big driver for the economy and for try to mitigate any disaster that may come our way in the next 100 years. These are the three partners. So I want to highlight Garrison Diversion. Garrison Diversion is essentially the middle group between the Lake Agassiz Water Authority and the state of North Dakota. The state of North Dakota, we're blessed to have the oil and gas industry, and we're blessed to have the revenue that comes off of that. So the revenues that are funding this particular project from a state perspective are oil revenues, and so those oil revenues are really driving the 75% cost share. Garrison Diversion is right now the conduit of the state of North Dakota, basically owning, operating the project. And then you have Lake Agassiz Water Authority, which are representing local users to include Grand Forks. So that's the three rings of how this project has gotten done and is getting done today. Again, you can see we're down here in the users. We're at this point, shouldering the 25% cost share on the particular project from a capital perspective. So right now we're looking at our participation costs. We work through Lake Agassiz Water Authority. Garrison Diversion is running the project on behalf of the state of North Dakota, and then in turn they're providing water supply back to Lake Agassiz Water Authority and the users, including Grand Forks. Again, the project benefits are, we suffer in eastern North Dakota. We suffer from tributaries, surface water and groundwater. that is, in the groundwater perspective, a lot it's already been used up or mostly used up. Our surface water is prone to flooding and it's prone to drought. So we have some challenges, and really this project is helping trying to mitigate both of those from a drought mitigation and also from an industrial supply perspectives. When you look at this project, it's really designed around a 1930s era flood, and these are the shortages that are the most have the most magnitude. And so when we look at what may happen in the 1930s, the thing that gives everyone shudders is we know there's a lot more people in the Red River Valley in the state. There's a lot more water usage than there were in 1930s, and so what would happen if we had a 1930s era drought? And it's that we want to get this project done so that we mitigate some of our significant concerns that we have. The other part is in the late 1980s. I can remember that. I think I was in high school in the late 1980s, but there was another significant drought. So you can see we're along the way where droughts come and go, but really pointing to the 1930s and the late 1980s are really the two high points. These three images I want to let you know is that in the state of North Dakota, we go from having being relatively wet to within a year, suddenly we're in a drought situation. And so we are prone to those switches relatively quickly in the state of North Dakota, which obviously drove out a lot of people from in the 1930s to head out west for the good life. Because we're in North Dakota, we have our water law is you have to, you're first in time, you have to use it. And so really what the state of North Dakota has taken a big focus on is that we have this valuable resource in the Missouri River where most of the state's water is. And you can see to the south of us, there's plenty of other states and water systems that are looking at large water supply projects, and a lot of those center on the Missouri River. And so it's really our opportunity to start moving forward and using the Missouri River because those south of us have their eyes on it. And if you look at some of these projects, really our 120 MGD or 165 CFS project pales in comparison to some of these other larger projects to our south. This is a timeline of, we did a lot of things after World War II, including the Garrison Diversion Project, and really hit lots of snags in the 2000s. But I want to point to two time frames. One, 2008 to 10. This was going to be a federal, state, and local project. We could never get a record of decision from the federal government. And so in 2011, the state developed the state local project that we've been working on ever since. And I think another important milestone is in 2020 and 2021, due to the help of our good Senator Hoeven. He came up with an opportunity for the NDOS, and that's Eastern North Dakota Alternative Water Supply. And that's using some of these federal works that were put in to help save project costs in that. So I'll go over some of those. But that was a big game changer, thanks to Senator Hoeven. Here we are underway. This is the Cheyenne River discharge structure. I'll show you a map of that. And here's the main transmission pipeline that I pointed out. So it's a major pipe project. It is under construction. And so one of the game changers is we're in this NDOS, and I talked about what Senator Hoeven's worked on. There was an intake put in Washburn, but what's happened along the way is Senator Hoeven has been able to help us move forward with his NDOS project, in which by putting the intake right up here at higher ground, it allows us to save pipeline lengths, I think about a $200 million capital savings, and even more so than that, for the long term, it saves us an operation and maintenance costs. The other thing, the Biota treatment plant is planned to be right here at the intake. And again, that's another structure that Senator Hoeven is looking, have the federal government cost share on as part of this project. This initial pipe length is called the NDOS, and so that would have the federal participation. So all told, when you look at kind of where we're at, I mentioned the $1.24 billion project. Senator Hoeven is working hard to see what he can do to add in federal monies above and beyond the state and local cost share. And right now, the number that they're working off is about $454 million that he's working on to try to bring to this particular project to make it more affordable for both the state and local government. So that's a really big deal. The whole point of this is that some of this is, the pipeline is under design, some of it's under construction, some of it's shovel-ready. But I want to just point out also, as this project, how will it serve Grand Forks? Our nomination will be dumped into the Cheyenne River Basin. We have Lake Ashtabula that has been man-made, created by the Bald Hill Dam. And essentially, the water is going to go through the Cheyenne River and then enter into the Red River to the north of Fargo, and then that's where our water is going to be returned. I want to point out also, during the height of the Fufang wet corn mill project, if we can think back to those times, we also came back to you and discussed, we're going to nominate, I'm going to go over our nominations for this fresh water, we'll say, but we let you know that really likely in a drought situation, Fargo would actually use our water nomination. As part of an agreement, we would require the city of Fargo to return a certain percentage of their wastewater to the river, and then we would treat that. That's how this project would work, so that we could have a manageable project from a pipe size perspective. So that's what we talked to you back in the Fufang days of how this particular project would work. But here we are now where it really matters, where we got to really work on the details of this project. Again, this is Grand Forks. We did this in 2016, and we were trying to look at 2075 needs. And so we looked at what our population would be in 2075, what users on a per capita basis would be using for water. We looked at our current industry, and then we looked at potential growth in industry. And we lined up with, this is our current nomination, and as part of this final review, we really have to come back to a city council to say, this is what we want to nominate for. But preliminarily, this is what Grand Forks nominated for, about 16.8 MGD, and you have to look at that with growth in our population, growth in our industry. We're pegging that at 2075 at 16.8. This would be with all the mitigation that we'd have to do regarding curtailing water usage and that sort of thing in the event of a drought. We've also incorporated East Grand Forks into our nomination. So you can see where East Grand Forks nominated for about 1.3 million gallons per day. And so we've added them into our nomination. How would we serve East Grand Forks? We do have an emergency bypass between the two cities. The pump station's on the East Grand Forks side, just on the other side of the Point Bridge. And so we're able to transfer back and forth about 1 million gallons per day. And so essentially that would be the transmission from our water treatment plant to East Grand Forks as part of that. We have an intake on the Red River. East Grand Forks only has an intake on the Red Lake River. And these are the nominations of our, the mayor and I and the entire team. We've been working with the Northeast water users. These are their nominations that we would be able to interconnect with, and that's Agassiz Rural Water, Tri-County, and East Central. There's others from Walsh County and others, but these would be the 3 rural water systems that we're within a distance where we'd be able to interconnect with. And you can see within our region what the nomination would be for domestic and industrial. We're working with our Northeast regional users just how they could be best served by this project, so we've been working with them quite a bit. Again, Grand Forks, these are the total nominations. Fargo, we'll call it the Fargo Metro, is about 63%. Grand Forks is about 17%. So if you want to know the scale, we're plus or minus about 80% of the project. The remaining members are about 20%. So we're a substantial amount of the project. These are the neighbors that we're working with on the regional service, and so there's 3 options, and there's probably more than 3 options when we get down to it, but these are some of our neighbors. Here's Grand Forks, here's East Grand Forks. These dotted lines around Grand Forks are areas that we could serve from our intake. So we would draw the water in from the red, and then we would be able to interconnect with their system. Some entities are far away, so what they've asked for coming off this pipeline is that they would be able to build a branch pipeline to their water systems, and that's in pink here. And so it would go along what they call the Beach Ridge, which just outside the valley is where they want to put that pipeline in. Here's an alternative too that uses more of Grand Forks' intake, and we would be more of a system supplier around us, and then a shorter pipeline to our regional neighbors. And these are all the groups that we've been meeting with. The mayor Ken Vian, Councilmember Vian, and myself, we went up to Grafton today up at Walsh Rural Water, and we met with Agassiz, we met with Northeast, we met with East Central, and others, just to talk through kind of where they're at with the project, what can Grand Forks do to help support them as they move forward. Are they going to be in the project, or are they not? What they're going to nominate for, how would they be best served? So we've been really engaging with them on an ongoing basis and supporting one another. These are the nominations for our future. I mentioned that we're about 13-something CFS for a total industrial nomination. So back in 2016, we nominated for an additional future nomination of 8.6 CFS for future industry between now and 2075. And these are really, you can see where Agassiz, East Central, and Tri-County, those rural water systems, for the most part, nominated for industrial growth, not for domestic growth, where we did both of those. And this chart right down here is really set to how many CFS do you need for the various industries. And so if you look at, like a Simplot type facility, you can see where they're kind of the midpoint. You can see on the far right is nitrogen fertilizer production. Likely, we know that. It'd be likely wastewater beneficial reuse. It wouldn't be potable water per se. But you can see where we looked at the various water needs of industries. We have to be very thankful, not only for the state of North Dakota for their 75% cost share, but also they've made a promise to fund this project up to $953 million as part of that 80-20 cost split. We have to be thankful to Senator Hoeven for all his work on NDOS, because that's trimming significantly the capital cost of this project and the O&M if we can get that accomplished. And then finally, working with the state of North Dakota on the Bank of North Dakota loan. So we've been able to receive to date 40-year 2% interest. And in this current session, they even deferred payment for 2 years and then did interest only for years 3 through 5. And then we would have to start paying years 6 through 40. And that was really because we weren't quite sure where the project was moving, to try to make this as affordable as possible. So thankfully, we have a bank in North Dakota. So lots of moving parts. We want to make sure that from a Grand Forks perspective, in our 25%, we can keep this kind of financing moving forward. And it'll be obviously our number one legislative priority as we move to the next session, just as it was this this current biennium. Here's what I talked about with the bill. Grand Forks is really important with this. Mayor Buczynski and Councilmember Vian are going to be very important in this next legislative session, along with our colleagues from Fargo, to keep moving this project forward in a positive way. This is the local cost component. So when I talked about the $1.26 billion, this is the $310 million for the core system, for the construction, the O&M at $392,000, the maintenance and administration at almost $2.3 million, and then finally funding basically a capital reserve at $664,000. So that totals up to the local cost share on this particular project. And when you look at Grand Forks, where are we at? So this project is intended to be a 10-year build. And so really the peak is 2034. This project should be built. And so we looked at what are our bill impacts. And so this is representing with all of our cost share built into that, with the O&M, the administration, the capital reserve. Our dollar amount per user would be $3.64 per month. Those are in 2024 dollars, okay? It's assuming the project's done in 2034, but it's bringing it back to 2024 dollars to try to capture everything. So here's our breakdown of what, between all those categories, from capital to operation to maintenance, administrations, and near-term reserve. Our dollar amount in 2034, again in 2024 dollars, is $2,275,700. I mentioned the $364 per month. What we're planning on doing in speaking with Maureen Storstad is that I have to get this correct. We're going to set up we're planning as part of this budget process for 2025, we set up a separate enterprise fund for this project and a separate fee that would appear on the utility bill for this project specific. We intend to try to start that in 2025, and then you can see with those how the rates would continue to glide up. Is you would see that between now and 2034, we would anticipate those rates continuing to go up not with the increased capital costs, but also with the time value of money. Garrison Diversion right now is leading the project on behalf of the state of North Dakota, and they would really like for us to sign a project participation agreement by the end of the year. And why that's so important is that's going to set the agreement moving forward. You know, we've signed. I've been here before on several occasions asking you to sign cooperation agreements, to sign interim finance agreements, and those were agreements that weren't forever. And so this particular agreement is really important because it's going to be with us with this project for the tenure of the project. So it's a really important time for us to be engaged. The City Council has already approved this Series D interim financing agreement. What Garrison is doing right now with Diversion, they're going around to the smaller users, that 20%, to see are they in the project or are they not. So they're doing lots of visits. One of the things that Fargo and Grand Forks did as part of the Series D, if you looked at the previous Series A, B, and C, Fargo and Grand Forks bared the whole, along with Garrison in one of them, the local cost, but we thought you should go out to this 20% and see if they're in the project or not, at least on this interim period of time, because that will be a test if they're in or not. And then again, this more permanent agreement, where the Garrison's goal is to have that completed by December 2024. I think that's going to be challenging for us to complete that date, but we're going to continue to make progress on that because there's lots of important details we'll have to work through. Now, I'm going to ask Mr. Coors to talk about this too, but that agreement is a I don't know, it's a 100+ page agreement, but the important part are these various exhibits A through I that really spell out all the details of how the project's going to work. And so what we've asked for is that we would retain an expert firm to review all those technical documents to ensure, like when I showed you during the Fufang wet corn mill, that return flow model is actually going to work for Grand Forks. Those are some of the things. And so one of the first things that we're going to take a look at is the state mod documentation. And so when we were here talking about that project, that was the model we were looking at. Mr. Coors and his team they're going to look at that particular model to verify that's going to work long-term for the Grand Forks. They're going to look at the operational framework with E, with the operations, maintenance, administration, reserve responsibility, capital cost responsibility. So there's lots of various details that we need to work through. We'll also maybe, into support of Mr. Gossett as our city attorney, look to hire also a water attorney to help support our efforts over the next, I'm going to say 12 months. If you look at Mr. Coors' kind of his scope and of his task order is to go over between now and probably this time next year. So it's a significant amount of review that we're going to need, but we really wanted to get going in reviewing these various exhibits. So this is Mr. Coors' his firm is Precision Water Resources that we're asking you this evening to approve as our expert to review these technical documents. They are based in Colorado, and if you looked at Mr. Coors' his vitae, he's been involved in a lot of western states like Colorado and others, working on various studies, and so I think he comes well equipped to help us out, having been part of previous battles. And again, I talked about his scope of services are the state mod review, reviewing the previous studies and reports, and evaluating all those various current exhibits that are in that PPA agreement. The dollar amount is $146,658. We would ask you to take that from the Water Enterprise Fund and approve an amendment for that dollar amount. The other thing we'd like to approve is Councilmember Vian and Mayor Buczynski and I, we've talked about how do we move forward with the project. Ken is our Grand Forks County Garrison Diversion appointee right now. And if you look at the organizational structure, Garrison Diversion is kind of on opposite sides of the table from Lake Agassiz Water Authority. Ken is also, or Councilmember Vian is also our Lake Agassiz Water Authority appointee too. And so as part of this transition of us trying to get the best of everyone, to have Ken be our council representative and also our representative on Garrison Diversion for not only Grand Forks, but the Grand Forks County. And then to have Mayor Bochensky represent the city of Grand Forks on LAWA as our representative. And currently, right now, Fargo has Mayor Mahoney as the chair, and he's their representative. So likely Mayor Bochensky would be the vice chair. And he would replace, with this appointment, he'd replace Ken as the vice chair of Lake Agassiz Water Authority. So that's what we're asking for this evening. Number one, to ask any questions on the review, and we have people here that can help out. Number two, to approve the agreement with Precision Water Resources Engineering in the amount of $146,658 coming from the Water Enterprise Fund with an associated budget amendment. And then finally, to transition Mayor Bochensky as the LAWA representative on behalf of the City of Grand Forks in replacing Ken Vian as a council member for those stated reasons. So with that, Mr. Weigel, I would put a period on it, and if there's any questions, and there's others that can answer.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Mr. Veen?
Well, first of all, thanks, Todd, Mr. Phelan, for the presentation. I think there's a lot of stuff here, and you'll be able to skim it on top really well and try to get the information because it's complex. The one thing I'd like to hit really hard is this project participation agreement that Todd has talked to. And I think it may be one of the most significant long-term commitments the city has ever had or probably will have, because it's the one guarantee we will have for a future water supply. And without water, it's devastating to the community. I think the structure that he talked about, having Mayor Bochensky move up into the LAWA position, is it in all of our best interest to do that? Maybe for a short time being second in charge, but there's no reason why he won't take over as chair of that too at some point in time too. So the other cities that are on there, I think there's 5 of them, all have their mayors. So I think that makes good sense for us. And the idea of bringing on Mr. Coors to work on the state, but look at the modeling in general. State mod is what was identified. This is so critical. I think having a second set of eyes, trust but verify, is really important. And the same goes with the water specialist. You see what's happening down in Colorado with the Colorado River and how you divide the waters up in times of drought is very technical and very political and very legal. So I think bringing and supporting the team like Todd laid out is super critical. And I think we have a great plan for moving forward. So just thanks for that.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. Further comments, discussions?
I would also say, I would be remiss, we are working with the city of Fargo quite well on this too. So they're doing their review currently. They're a little bit ahead of us, so they know we're doing this. So we're really going to share resources together on this in partnership.
Perfect.
And maybe I could just have Mr. Coors introduce himself and say hello and kind of what he sees as his initial steps moving forward.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you. Does everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Okay, well, my name is Shane Coors. I'm the president of Precision Water Resources Engineering, and yeah, excited, honored to be invited to be a part. It's a very important project. My firm has been doing water resources planning and management for 15 years, and we have been involved heavily in the Western United States in some really complicated and contentious water agreements or disagreements, as the case may be. But we have seen a lot of agreements take place like this. We've built models to support them. We've looked at others. I've had the opportunity to represent some other large metropolitan areas like Reno and a couple one in the Midwestern United States that's doing a pipeline project right now that I'm not supposed to talk a whole lot about, but it's really similar stuff that we're doing. I've testified in front of the United States Supreme Court on some disagreements between 2 states, Texas and New Mexico, over water and old agreements that maybe weren't set up very well. So anyway, we have seen a lot of these. Our role would be to come in and take a good look at the agreement, take a careful look at the model, which is our specialty, and really try to assess how Grand Forks interests are being represented in this. It can get complicated. And there's a lot to consider. And so that's the expertise that we would bring. I have a team of about 12 engineers who have all been a part of modeling and water resources planning and management. And so I think we're qualified. We look forward to working with the team if so selected, and appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself and my firm.
Chair Weigel, if I may.
Mr. Weber?
I rarely shy away from making a motion, and this is certainly an item that I'm prepared to support. But Ken, out of respect for and in deference to your years, decades of experience and work on this, I'm looking for you to make the motion on this, if you would.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Weber. I will go ahead and make that motion then to support the staff recommendation.
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. V and second by Ms. Osowski. Further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Coors. Move on to item number 4, City Council member discussion matters. Ms. Osowski,
No, sir, thank you.
Ms. Linsky, Mr. Bean, Vice President Weber,
No, thank you, Chairman Weigel.
Mr. Gabami. I've got nothing either. Just thanks for the help, but thanks for bearing with me while I try to figure this thing out tonight. And is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Osowski, second by Lunsky. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Same sign. We are adjourned.